It was summer 2017. It was hot, the end of July. And Bitcoin has reached an incredible price of 3,000 euros, and the Bitcoin community broke. There was a problem which was pretty clear since some years before. The block had a limit of 1 megabyte. This means about 4,000 transactions. It was Satoshi himself who put the block limit to avoid that somebody send a huge amount of transactions all at the same time and stuck the system. However, he forgot, or he did not want to, give a rule to increase this block size limit. Part of the Bitcoin community decided to go for large blocks, so to increment the block size to 8 megabytes and later on to 32 megabytes. Another part of the community, on the other hand, decided to implement SegWit, segregated witnesses, a new type of optional protocol which lets the block increase just slightly, maximum 40%, but which opened the possibility for building the Lightning Network. The large block supporters claimed that it was not necessary to set up another structure above the blockchain because the solution was straightforward. The SegWit supporters, on the other hand, say that having large blocks would prevent ordinary people, so home users, from running a full node and from eventually mining. The other ones, however, were claiming that almost no home users was actually running a full node at that time. The community broke, the blockchain forked, it was a turbulent time, and at the end the exchanges, the only ones who were in charge or who had any interest in putting a label to something, decided that the large blocks was called Bitcoin Cash and the SegWit was called Bitcoin. So let's see what is this Lightning Network all about. This part of the first part of the video will be just a description which is probably understandable to everybody, at least the people who have followed my video on cryptocurrencies. The second part of the video instead goes into the technical details, so something which may be overwhelming for some of you. It's of increasing difficulty, so you may follow up to the point where you don't understand anymore and you can give up. So, what is the Lightning Network? The Lightning Network has a basis on what you usually do, or better, we usually did several decades ago in real life. So when you regularly go to a shop, it was pretty common to have, let's say, an open channel with this shop in which you give them money without actually giving money. The shop could keep the registers of how much do you own. However, it is not something which you usually do with if the shop doesn't trust you. But let's assume, for example, that you regularly go to a pub to take a coffee every day, and every day it's €1, €1. You're stuck of paying every time the €1. You don't have the coins, etc., etc. They don't have any feeless payment method. So you decide to give them €100, and they give you a piece of paper, a piece of cardboard, in which there are 100 squares, and every time you take a coffee, they punch a square. If the pub is honest enough, if the coffee shop is honest enough, you can at any time give them back the cardboard, and they will pay €1 for each square without a hole inside. This is the Lightning Network, nothing else. So two people decide together to open a channel. Okay, in practice, they take some bitcoins. They put some bitcoins on a separate address, which is a multi-signature address. It means that in order to take the money out from that address, both need to sign the transaction. So at this point they have, let's say, a common account, and this account is able also to keep an accounting. So how much money belongs to the first one and how much money belongs to the second person. And so they can make transaction simply changing the accounting system. It's equivalent to two people who go living together, okay? And instead of continuously exchanging money they just keep a note usually stuck on the refrigerator, with how much money do you own to the other person, and they keep it up to date. When they decide to set apart, if they don't fight too much, they can just simply take the notes on the refrigerator and conclude, so close the channel and pay the difference in cash, and that's it. Okay. Bitcoin is the same, so you have a common account in which both have to sign if they want to move money. Okay. They exchange notes in which they say how much money do they own to each other. So for example, they start with 5.5, one then has to give €1 to the other one, so they exchange a note saying now the balance is 6.4, now the balance is 7.3, and every time it have to remember to delete the previous note. However, this is very important because otherwise, okay, this kind of notes in the Bitcoin blockchain are nothing else but sign transactions, so transactions which are officially signed but not put on the blockchain, so they don't need to put anything on the blockchain except the first transaction to open the account. For the rest, they have an account which officially is doing nothing, but they are keeping balances among themselves, so they're updating a balance which is valid only for themselves, and at any time one of the two can close the account because they both have a transaction already signed by both, which they can put on the blockchain and conclude close the channel and send out the money according to what the accounting system says. But if it were only this one, it will be pretty useless because it can be useful only with people with whom you regularly have payments going on. Still useful, however, but not so much. The big advantage is that you can involve other intermediaries. So if you need, for example, to pay one of your friends and you both go to the same coffee shop and you both have a channel open with a coffee shop, you can pay the coffee shop and the coffee shop moves the money to your friend. For the coffee shop, nothing changes, or better, only a slight thing changes. They have more money on the channel with you and less money on the channel with your friend. But at the end, the balance is the same. They will probably charge a very small fee for this service. The fee will be small because if the fee is too much, I will choose another route. So I will choose, it's not like the mining in which there is only one person who is mining and that is what I get. If the fee is too much, I simply take another route, other people, another common friend, for example, who charges less. Everything is done automatically. This is a very famous way of moving money, famous since the first part of the Middle Age, typically used in North Africa and still used today by many immigrants who want to send back home their money, and simply, instead of sending via bank transfer, which is pretty expensive, they send the money, giving the money to a person. This person has a chain of trust with a lot of other people, and until the final one is in another country and pays the other person. Okay, Haoili, I think that the name is, it's particularly used in India, for example. Okay, this is how the Lightning Network works. This is done electronically, obviously. It should be in a Lightning. That's why it's called Lightning. Because it does not require anything written on the blockchain, even though they both have valid transactions, which they can put on the blockchain at any time and close the channel as it is with the current balance. Okay, let's see now how do we technically deal with it, because there are a lot of questions and a lot of issues, okay, which can come up with. Okay, first of all, how do they open the channel? Suppose Alice and Bob want to open the channel with 5 Bitcoin each. So sometimes one of the two pays 0, other times they both pay something. Okay. Until now, it seems that Bitcoin transactions could be made only from one address to another one, but no. You can make a Bitcoin transaction from any amount of addresses to any amount of addresses. In particular, Alice doesn't pay the 5 Bitcoins and then waits for Bob paying his 5 Bitcoins, because Bob can change his mind, don't pay, and now Alice has 5 Bitcoins locked on a common address. Okay, so Alice prepares this transaction with 5 Bitcoins from her account to the common address, and 5 bitcoins from Bob account to common address, signed by her, signed by Bob, and broadcasted onto blockchain. I will paint in green everything which is broadcasted onto blockchain, and in blue everything which is not broadcasted onto blockchain. And you will see that this is one of the very few things which will be green, because here you don't make real blockchain transactions. This immediately presents a big problem. Well, the biggest problem is that suppose that Bob doesn't need the money urgently, while Alice needs the money urgently, and Alice wants to close the channel. But in order to close this channel, which means giving back the money from the common address to their respective addresses, the transaction needs to be signed by both, because this is a common address. It's a multi-signature address. And Bob can say, no, I don't sign any transaction. If you want the money, we can make 6 for me and 4 for you. Okay? Or even worse, Bob can be even more evil and give to Alice a transaction already signed by him with 7 for Bob and 3 for Alice, and tell Alice, okay, I will never sign any other transaction here. This is the only one I will sign. Use whenever you want. At this point, Alice sooner or later will need the money. Instead of getting 0, she will prefer to get 3. So Bob can really cheat with Alice. The same thing can do Alice. Okay. Even worse, Bob can disappear. Who knows who is Bob? Poof, can disappear, and Alice has her money stuck. So this is not really what they do. They do something else. Before opening the channel, even before, so the channel is open, the address is empty. Before opening it, they prepare another transaction called the closed channel transaction. This transaction says that from the common address, 5 Bitcoin go to Alice and 5 Bitcoins go to Bob. It's signed by Alice, signed by Bob, and held by both. So they both have this transaction here ready, signed by both, which closes the channel. And only after, pay attention that they cannot put this transaction on the blockchain for the moment, because it will be rejected. There is nothing on this address. You cannot move 5 Bitcoins from an address which is empty. Only after they prepare this transaction and put it on the blockchain. Okay. If any of the two wants to close the channel and get back the money, they both have this transaction already ready, just need to be broadcasted on the blockchain, and will close the channel. Straightforward. Okay. So this is what normal people should do in real life whenever they open together a small company or whenever an association. The very first thing they should decide, is how to close it. Okay. So this is usually a good procedure also outside the blockchain. So first decide how to close and get everything ready, even if the address doesn't exist, it's empty currently. Okay. And then really open the channel and broadcast on the blockchain the open channel. They don't broadcast this one if they want to keep the channel open. Okay. How can they make transactions? Well, they have the closed channel transaction. They make transactions simply changing this transaction here. For example, suppose that Alice wants to give 1 Bitcoin to Bob. She prepares a new transaction with 4 Bitcoins for herself and 6 Bitcoins for Bob, so she updates accounting. She signed it, Bob signed it, and they both hold it. They both hold it. Very well, so this transaction readjusted the thing. So now Alice has given 1 Bitcoin to Bob, because Bob can broadcast this transaction on the blockchain, and he will get 6, and Alice will get 4. Okay. However, there is a little problem, that this transaction still exists. So Alice can cheat and publish this transaction on the blockchain, and Bob will get 5 instead of 6. So Bob asks Alice, please Alice, be sure to delete the whole transaction. You should not have it anymore. We will see in the technical part how this deletion can be done, because it's impossible to delete something on another person's computer, because you never know whether the other person has done a backup, for example. So it's impossible for Bob to be sure that Alice has deleted the transaction. But let's suppose now that he can be sure of this. Okay, don't forget that the two people don't trust each other. We will see that the entire system is set up with the assumption that the two people want to cheat each other. Okay, so to avoid any possible cheating. Because if the two people trust each other, they don't even need the blockchain. They can just make a telephone call whatever, or just an email is enough, and that's it. Okay, but we are supposed that the two people don't trust each other. Another transaction, Alice gives another Bitcoin to Bob, so 3 to 7, and remember to delete the previous one. Okay, now let's see how can we delete the previous one, because it's not easy. I lied because they did not open the channel with this closed channel transaction really. They build a slightly, because this one cannot really be deleted. They build a slightly different one, a different transaction which can be deleted. Let's see how. The transaction they build is the following. 5 Bitcoins to Bob, 5 Bitcoins to Alice after 24 hours. So the Bitcoin blockchain accepts a transaction like this one with a time limit. So they are valid after 24 hours after they've been broadcasted. Okay. And 5 Bitcoins to Bob if he reveals a secret number which only Alice knows. So Alice has to generate this secret number. We call it Alice2. Okay. She keeps it secret for herself. Okay. She builds this transaction where 5 Bitcoins go to Bob, 5 Bitcoins go to her, but with a 24 hours wait, or go to Bob if he is able to, in the meantime, in this 24 hours, to reveal this secret number. Okay. It's signed first by Bob, so she gives it to Bob and says, sign it, please. Okay. And then it's signed by Alice, and held only by Alice. Alice will never give this transaction to Bob, so that's why it's signed first by Bob and then by Alice. Okay. So for the moment, I will explain later what is the impact of this thing here. Okay, Bob has a symmetric transaction. 5 go to Alice, 5 go to him after 24 hours. 5 go otherwise they go to Alice if she's able to reveal the Bob2, which is known only to Bob. Signed first by Alice, after by Bob, and held by Bob. Bob will never give it to Alice. Okay, you can see that both can close the channel. Okay, with a 5-5. The only problem is that the ones who closes the channel will have to wait 24 hours to get his money. It's not so bad after all. Much better than losing the money completely. This can be changed, however. If you want, you can set it to a smaller limit. But usually it's not a good idea. We'll see later why. Okay, since Alice2 is known only to Alice and Bob2 is known only to Bob, this will never happen for the moment. They make a transaction. Suppose, as usual, Alice wants to give 1 Bitcoin to Bob, so they both prepare 2 new transactions. This one was 6 for Bob and 4 to Alice, with the usual condition, so Alice waits 24 hours, or it becomes Bob's one if he reveals Alice 3, another secret number that Alice generates. Okay, signed first by Bob and then by Alice. This one perfectly symmetric, 4 to Alice, 6 to Bob after 24 hours, or to Alice if she's able to reveal Bob 3. Okay. The blockchain accepts things like that, so accepts condition with further revealing and things like that. Signed first by Alice and after by Bob. And held by Bob. Okay, how now they can make sure that this one is deleted? They can make sure that this one is deleted, not actually deleting it, but they can make this transaction impossible for the other person, or better, economically not worthwhile for the other person to use. How? Well, publishing Alice2 and Bob2. So they both say, okay, now we have to publish Alice2 and Bob2. Okay, so before signing this thing here, or better, before exchanging their respective transactions, they publish Alice2 and Bob2. What happens if they publish Alice2 and Bob2? Well, or better, they tell to each other, the other person, the Alice2 and the Bob2. It happens that they will never now broadcast this one on the blockchain. That's why I painted red. It still can be technically broadcasted, but it's economically not worthwhile. Why? Suppose that Alice wants to cheat. The current situation is 6 Bitcoins for Bob and 4 Bitcoins for Alice. Suppose that Alice now wants to cheat. She wants to publish this one on the blockchain, closing the channel with a 5-5. Okay, very well. She publishes this on the blockchain. First, 5 Bitcoins go. She can do it because it's signed by both. First, 5 Bitcoins go immediately to Bob. That's it. Okay, but Bob wants another one. Then 5 bitcoins go to Alice, but not immediately, with a 24 hours wait. Bob, in this 24 hours, is able to see this transaction appearing on the blockchain. The blockchain is public. And so he says, haha, you're trying to cheat because you are publishing on the blockchain an old transaction. Very well, so I reveal Alice Chu. And these 5 bitcoins go to me. Poof, all 10. So Alice has lost everything. Literally everything. You can make it less punishing by not losing really everything, but usually the threat of losing everything is fairly good. So in this way, Alice will never risk to publish this one on the blockchain and will keep it very well closed in her drawer, or even better, will delete it completely so it never exists, this one. Okay, because she's facing the risk that Bob realizes that it's published on the blockchain, and within 24 hours he's able to reveal Alice Chu and get all the money. All the money. It's a really punishment. Same thing can do Alice if Bob tries to publish this one, but Bob will never publish this one because Bob will prefer to publish this one, which is better for him. Okay, little problems. First problem, Bob has only 24 hours. If for any reason Bob is on vacation in a tropical jungle and doesn't have the connection for 24 hours, this one is valid, and that's it. Okay, that's why it's never a good idea to reduce this 24 hours, because if for some reason Bob has the computer switched off, he needs to switch it on to realize what's happening. Because Bob must monitor continuously the blockchain. A second little problem, we'll see the second little problem later on. However, usually, let's say it's enough that Bob every 24 hours give a look, switches off the on the computer and takes a look and does everything. There are also services which do this for you, so check that nobody's cheating on you. Okay. If they want to make another transaction, same thing. So they set up a new transaction, 7-3, okay, with a new secret number, Alice 4 and Bob 4. Okay. At the same time, they publish Alice 3 and Bob 3. This two becomes impossible to use, because if any of the two tries to use it, the other one can take all the money, okay, and will take all the money probably. Okay. And here there is the second little problem. They need to have a constant and well done backup system. While for a standard blockchain transaction, if you don't use Lightning Network, you don't need a backup system, because everything is written on the blockchain. The only thing you need to remember is your private key. That's it. Okay, or something which can help you reconstruct your private key. Here, if you don't remember all the transactions, so if you don't back up the last transaction, the last one, suppose that, for example, Alice has an old backup, a backup of yesterday, but in the meantime she has published this transaction, and for some reason she loses this transaction. This one, she can never publish it, because if Bob realizes that she publishes it, will steal all her money. So Alice needs to have this transaction and the Bob 3 key to avoid that Bob 3 cheats, and also the Bob 2 key. Okay, so you need to have a perfectly aligned backup system. Even worse, if Alice, for example, loses some data, this one, and doesn't realize it. She doesn't realize it. She puts this on the blockchain, and Bob, poof, takes all her money. So you need to be online, and you need to have a good backup system. Okay. And now let's see how you can use intermediaries to do this thing here. So Alice needs to send 1 Bitcoin to Claude. Okay. Alice has an open channel with Bob, and Bob has an open channel with Claude. The channels are organized in the usual way, so with the usual transaction, 5 to Bob, 5 to Alice after 24 hours, or to Bob if she reveals Alice Chu. Same thing here. Here the situation is 6 to Chu, so 6 for Claude and 2 for Bob. Okay. Alice sends 1 Bitcoin to Bob using the channel and says, please Bob, can you forward this Bitcoin to Claude, taking perhaps 0.0001 as a commission, as a fee? And Bob say, sure, don't worry Alice, I will do it. She sends the Bitcoin, say, rearrange the transaction, and Bob, poof, closes the channel and say, goodbye Alice, thank you for the Bitcoin, for $60,000, thank you very much. and goes away. And also closes the channel with Claude, just to be sure. Okay, so how can we force Bob to send the Bitcoin to Claude? Okay, otherwise he will somehow punish, or at least he will not get anything from Alice. Well, exactly with the same way that the immigrants used to send money home. They are told a secret number which their relatives at home must tell to the local agent to get the money. So there is a secret number going around in the opposite direction from here to here. So Claude generates a secret number R, okay, and she calculates the hash of it. If any of you has followed my video on mining, you know what the hash is. Otherwise, it's simply, let's say, a fingerprint of this number. It's always possible to generate it starting from R, but starting from H, it's never possible to generate the original R. So it's a non-invertible function. Okay, and okay, what is this number for? Well, Claude communicates H to Alice and also to Bob, doesn't matter. She can communicate H to everybody without any problem. Okay, so now everybody knows H, but only she knows R. Okay, and look at the transaction which Alice is making with Bob. This is becoming complicated. 5 to Bob, as usual, and now there should be, but Bob should receive 6, so 4 to Alice, as usual, and 1 back to Alice if nothing happens after 2 hours. So if for 2 hours nothing happens, this goes back to Alice. Or 1 goes to Bob if he's able to tell what the value of R is, which can be checked by H. So you can check calculating the hash and checking if the value is correct or not. Okay, here the same, symmetric, 4 to Alice, 5 to Bob, and 1 back to Alice if nothing happens, or 1 to Bob if he's able to know the value of R. This is necessary, back to Alice in 2 hours, well, to avoid that Bob does nothing and this Bitcoin is stuck. So after 2 hours, if nothing happens, it goes back to Alice. Okay, at this point Bob accepts it, but still for him nothing has changed. He still has 5 Bitcoins. He doesn't have the 6th one. Okay, at this point Bob makes with Claude the same transaction. So, can you see? 1 goes to Bob back if nothing happens for 1 hour, or goes to Claude if she reveals R. Okay, Claude knows the value of R. Okay, so she publishes this transaction on the blockchain. Okay, and at this point she writes on the blockchain the value of R. Very well. Bob at this point knows R because he has read it on the blockchain and does the same here. So publishes this one on the blockchain and reveals the value of R. And so the Bitcoin has moved from Alice to Bob and from Bob to Claude. At this point also Alice knows R, but this is pretty irrelevant. Okay, but in practice they don't publish these 2 transactions on the blockchain because this will imply that the channels are closed. It's pretty non-convenient if you have to close the channel whenever somebody using you as an intermediary. Bob will not appreciate it. So what they do instead is the following. Okay, Claude says to Bob, please Bob, I know R and this is the value, so she explicitly tells the value to Bob. Bob can check it, calculating the hash and checking that it's exact. Okay, instead of making me put this transaction on the blockchain, we can arrange the situation by ourselves, adjusting the accounting to 7-2. So they adjust the accounts to 7-1, okay, in the usual way, with a new secret number, Claude 9, Bob 9. As usual, they publish Claude 8 and Bob 8 to delete this, so to make these 2 transactions impossible to publish. Okay, they readjust the situation here. Same thing does Bob, which at this point knows the value of R, okay, and tells to Alice, Alice, I could put this on the blockchain, but this will imply closing the channel and none of us has any interest in doing it. So I just tell you the value of R, you can check it yourself. So he tells the value of R, she can check it herself. Okay, that is correct. And she accepts this new balance 6 and 4. So the Bitcoin has moved from Alice to Bob and from Bob to Claude at the same time as R moves from Claude to Bob and from Bob to Alice. And that's it. That's the power of the Lightning Network. Everything obviously is done in a Lightning, okay, in less than 1 second, if all the actors are online. Okay. If one of the actors goes offline, there is this thing here, this condition here. Let's go back. This condition here. Go back to Alice in 2 hours, to Bob in 1 hour. So if Claude goes offline, the Bitcoin goes back to Bob. Bob doesn't know R, and so the Bitcoin after 2 hours goes back to Alice. Okay, this is done in case one of the actors goes offline. Why the limit here is 2 hours while here it's 1 hour? Because you can imagine if here were 2 hours and here it were 2 hours, Claude will reveal R after 1 hour, 59 minutes and 59 seconds, and Bob doesn't have the time to reveal it to Alice and adjust this one, and Alice and Bitcoin will go back, poof, will go back. This transaction now at this point says that Bitcoin goes back. So that's why there is here 2 hours and here 1 hour. So each intermediary you have to leave some time. I mean, this one, it's only, let's say, a backup solution if some intermediaries goes offline, or doesn't want to do the transaction, because in practice never happens. What happens in practice is this one with extremely fast speed. Okay, this is how the Lightning Network works.